Hello ACSW family, my name is Miss Torano and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to bake a cake. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make sure you have a spacious, clean area to work around in your kitchen. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to wash your hands. That's exactly what I did before I began this video. It's very, very important you always wash your hands before you do anything in the kitchen, okay? So after you do that, you go ahead and you space out all your ingredients. So for today's cake, we have to have 1/4 cup of water, which I have it right here pre-measured. Half a cup of vegetable oil, which I also have it right here pre-measured. This is the vegetable oil I used. Okay. And you need to have 3 eggs. Have it right here. Okay. And your cake mix. You're going to need a big bowl so you can mix all the ingredients. You're going to need a pan so you can put in the cake so you can bake it in the oven. And you're going to need a mixer, whether it's one of these, if you have one, or one of these, okay? And I also like to have a spatula ready for me. You can also have a spoon. It's just easier for you to transfer all the stuff in the big bowl to the pan, okay? So now that we went over the ingredients, let's begin. So the first thing you're going to do is preheat your oven with an adult, because remember, this baking adventure should always be done with an adult. So the first thing you're going to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. So my oven is going to preheat itself to 350 degrees, and in the meantime, we can get the cake mix together. So the first thing you're going to do is grab your cake mix from the box. I'm going to open it. Put it inside the big bowl. If you have a trash bin, it's easier for you to just put it right next to you because it's easier to just toss it out when you're done. Okay. Then you're going to mix the water. Well, first we're gonna actually mix the eggs inside the bowl just because it makes it easier for me to put it inside the big bowl. So I'm gonna do that first. In a mixer. Going to mix it all. Sometimes people do this inside the bowl, but I kind of like just mixing the eggs here in a separate bowl, so when I put it inside the cake mix, it's just easier to get the eggs already mixed up in there. Okay. Now that the egg is completely mixed, I'm gonna put this to the side. Okay, put it all in the bowl. Now I'm gonna grab my mixer because it's easier for me. But before I begin mixing very quickly, I am going to grease up the pan. So I put this spray just because it's easier for me to grease up the pan. 2 seconds. If you don't have this spray, you can just use a vegetable oil. Just a quick little spray all around, a very thin layer. Why do we put the spray? It's just so the cake, when you put it to bake, it doesn't get stuck to the pan. Just gonna do that very quickly and put it to the side. Now I'm going to mix. So it's very important that when you're mixing, you make sure that there's nothing powdery left. So since we're doing chocolate, it should be very creamy and brown, okay? So no powder, okay? So you should mix for at least 2 minutes, I would say, give or take. If you're using the other mixer, that can be maybe the same, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Okay. I'm gonna grab my spatula and just kind of put all the outer edge stuff in the middle of the bowl so it's easier. Oh, that means my oven is ready. Okay. Now I'm gonna continue to mix. I have a plastic plate next to me because it's just easier to put all the dirty utensils. But it's okay if you make a little mess, we can pick it up after, right? I think it's creamy enough. There's no clumps or powder anywhere. Okay, so it should be very liquidy, you can say. Now I'm gonna grab my pan and I'm going to pour it in there slowly, right? Because we don't want it to go everywhere. It's very, very important that you make sure you don't fill it up all the way to the top, because since this liquidy substance is gonna go bake, it's gonna form into a solid and it's gonna inflate. So if you pour it all the way to the top, it's going to inflate and it can go overflow the pan. We don't want that, right? So I'm gonna grab my spatula here and just try to get everything. See that, oh, it's good. Okay, so you can see that here we left about an inch of space from the chocolate to the top of the pan, because remember, once you bake it in the oven, it's going to go up. So if you were to do it to the tippy top, it can inflate and it can go over and can come out of the pan, okay? And we don't want it to overflow. So it's very important you don't go all the way to the top. You leave about an inch to half an inch of a space, okay? So now it's time to put it in the oven. So in the back of the box, you're gonna find the different pan size and the different baking times. So you need to make sure that you pick the right amount of time depending on the size of your pan. So for example, since my pan is a bit small, I'm gonna pick it, I'm gonna put for it to be 40 to 45 minutes. So because I never like to pick the minimum or the maximum of the time range it gives me, I like to pick a number in between. So I'm gonna put it for 43 minutes. Remember, it all depends on the size of your pan. So if your pan is larger, it might take up less amount of time. If your pan is smaller, it might take more amount of time. Okay, so mine's gonna be for 42 minutes. So I'm gonna put my pan in the oven and I'm gonna put it for 43 minutes. Time is set. So during this time, since you're waiting for your cake to be baked, this is the perfect time that you can help your adult clean up, right? This is the perfect time because we made quite a mess. Okay, so you can just put all the stuff inside the big bowl. Right, and this is the time where you go ahead and you wash the dishes. be right back. Okay, so now I finished washing the dishes. My area is completely cleaned. So my oven still says it has about 35 minutes left. So what can we do? Well, during this time, you can maybe watch TV, read a book, spend some time with your family, play a board game until the oven beeps and tells us the cake is done. Once the cake is done, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna check to see if it baked correctly. Now I'll show you how. When we're done with that, we're going to add a little bit of frosting to it. So stay tuned. Okay guys, so I just heard my oven beep. So now we're going to check to see if the cake is ready. So I'm gonna take it out of the oven first and I'm gonna show you how you can check. How do we check? So with a toothpick, you're gonna poke it in the middle and you're gonna take it out. You're gonna make sure that the toothpick is dry. If it looks moist and it has a lot of glump and goo, not goo, but like a lot of the cake still wet inside, and that means it's not ready. So I'm just gonna poke it around in some areas just to make sure that when I take out my toothpick, it's completely dry. So that means my cake is ready. I'm going to give it about 5 to 10 minutes for it to cool down, and then I'm gonna take it out of the pan and I'm gonna place it in this big plate so it's easier for me to frost it up. But if you don't have a big plate, it's okay. You can just leave it in there and you're just gonna wait for it to cool down for 10 minutes and then we're going to frost it up. Okay, so now that I waited 10 minutes for it to cool down, I went ahead and I washed my hands just one more time again, because remember, we can never be too clean. So I went ahead and I washed my hands before I handled the cake, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to transfer my cake to my plate, okay? Okay. Notice how because we had put the spray, nothing was stuck to the pan. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and I like to kind of microwave the frosting for at least 15 seconds so it's just easier for me to put on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and microwave it for just 15 seconds, okay? So now I have my spatula and I'm ready to go. Alright, so now I am ready to go ahead and put the icing on the cake. So you can see that it's now easier to me to just grab the icing and put. So it all depends on the people eating the cake. Some people are not fans of frosting, so they don't kind of like so much frosting on a cake. I guess I like frosting, but it all depends on what kind of frosting it is. This one's kind of cream cheese, so I'm not gonna put so much frosting on this cake particularly because I don't know how cream cheese and chocolate would taste. My parents love it, my sister loves it, I'm not so much of a fan. So I'm just gonna put a little bit. Doesn't taste so bad. So I already cleaned the outside of the plate and I don't think I'm gonna add another layer of frosting. However, it all depends on you how much frosting you wanna put on the cake. If you do wanna add multiple layers of frosting, I suggest that you just wait 5 to 10 minutes between each layer just so you can have that layer of frosting really settle in the cake before you add the other one. So, however, I'm completely done baking and I hope you all enjoyed baking with Miss Torano in her kitchen. I hope and I know your cakes are gonna come out delicious. Bye guys.